Hello, today we are playing UB Tempo against UB Reanimator, and we are playing a list very similar to Inf. You can see it on Inf's Twitter. There's an English sideboard guide and deck list. So notably we don't have Tamio and we don't have Bowmaster. Instead we have two main board Emperor of Bones, second Brazen Borer and second Thoughtseize and a Mishra's Bauble. So we are on the play, which is always good. It's a bit of a risky keep because we have only one land and no cantrip, but we kind of can build our own cantrip with Bloodstained Mire plus Cryland plus Mishra's Bauble and Natural Draw. We have 3 draws, so if we put this into the hypergeometric calculator, 53 cards in the deck, 3 cards we are looking at and 13 non-wastelands. Then we have 57.8%, and I think this is okay because even if we don't hit one of the colored lands, we can still hit a wasteland, and also the hand is quite good. We can also daze, and so I think this is a keep, but maybe you have a different opinion. Okay, the problem is also we cannot use the Mishra's Bauble to look at the opponent because we need it for ourselves. But we are pretty well suited to face pretty much anything because we have Force, Daze and Frog and Murktide, so we have something. This is pretty good. And we look and we see a Ponder, so this is good. Ponder gives us more looks. So problem is here, now we play into Stifle, but Stifle is not much played right now. And we can still decide if we want the Underground Sea or we want the Undercity Sewers. So we don't need to daze anything. So of course we are deciding to go for the Undercity Sewers. And now Undercity Sewers, and we have a pretty good chance. We see a Fatal Push, which could be good in the matchup. I mean, could be Doomsday, but they play Frog right now. Could be UB Reanimator, they play Frog right now, and Tempo plays Frog. So pretty much all the blue-black decks, or most of them, play creatures, but we need to maximize our chance for a land. And now we have 49 cards in our library. So we have a chance of 72.2% to find our land. And let's see, we do find a wasteland, but I think it's not good enough, because if we waste the opponent and the opponent, we can look in the chat log. Opponent puts 1 card on top of their library, and this seems like they have a second land, because otherwise they would probably have put the card down. I mean, it could be a troll, but I think this is too risky, so I shuffle, and unfortunately we miss on the land, and now we get Thoughtseized, we get wastelanded, and we are in a really bad position. At least we have a force, so we have 2 forces. So here we just force the Brainstorm. I'm not sure if this was correct, but I just wanted to, because the opponent played the Brainstorm first before playing the land, and I thought, okay, maybe this means that the opponent doesn't have a second land, but maybe that was a trap because I didn't have Daze active. So maybe this was wrong here in this case. Opponent plays a Frog, and now we cannot force the Frog, and now we have a big problem here. I mean, we still have a chance. We have a really good hand. We have the Emperor and Nethergolfs. And yeah, but we just slowly lose to the Frog, and it's pretty much a non-game here. We have a wasteland, we don't use it, and opponent plays Metamorphosis Fanatic, and opponent doesn't crack the fetch, so we can do the Daze Wasteland trick here, but we are too far behind, and the opponent has a Daze on their own. So yeah, I don't know if maybe I didn't float blue with the island. Maybe this was the mistake here. So let's look at it more clearly. So we waste the land, okay. Opponent fetches in response. No, we do that. We float blue mana. And now we daze with it on the stack. We pay for the daze. Ah, right, opponent has double daze and we surrender the game because it's pretty much over at this point. Okay, for game 2 we are on the play, so we get rid of 2 wastelands because they have a lot of lands normally, especially with the trolls. 3 Force of Wills and 1 daze, so 4 pieces of counter magic, and we already have a high number of graveyard hate cards. We have 4 main deck graveyard hate cards, and we still get to that surgical extraction. And so we are up to 5, and then we bring in Dark Betrayal, Sheoldred's Edict, Shoot the Sheriff, 3 pieces of removal, Barrow-Goyf, and Kaito. Okay, we are on the play with after sideboarding with quite a good hand, I think. We have most things of our opponent covered. We have Shoot the Sheriff, so we can kill trolls or something like a Metamorphosis Fanatic. We have the Nethergoyf to do damage. We have a Brainstorm, Surgical, and this time 2 lands. So this is a really good hand. And I think the best thing to do here is to fetch basic Swamp with Bloodstained Mire and play the Nethergoyf. Only problem is then we cannot fake that we have a daze, but I think this is okay. So yeah, I think this daze bluff doesn't give us much, so I think it's still better to like blank all their wastelands, because we saw last time we are really advantaged, so we want to not lose the game to stupid stuff like wasteland. And now and another problem is also if we start with basic land, we cannot brainstorm into shuffle with fetch land, but I anyway think it's better to wasteland here because the wasteland is only good early. And yeah, we cut down on wastelands because they have so many lands, but I think still if you're on the play and we do damage, it's still good to do it, and so we just make the game go longer. So I think this is okay here. And the opponent plays a Brainstorm, so this is okay because it's there is no shuffle effect. And opponent also cannot use the troll to shuffle because they don't have a land right now. So they immediately redraw one of the Brainstorm cards. And a bit of a problem for us is that the Nethergoyf is only a 1/2, but still we have a really strong position here. So what do? We play out a second land, and in this case here, even though we don't have the shuffle effect, because we already have quite a strong hand here, I decide to Brainstorm right now, just because I want to make the Nethergoyf bigger. So I think this 1 point is important because of Reanimate. So life points are important. Okay, so we play this one, and now we are going to redraw one of the cards anyways, and I think the Brazen Borer is the weakest card here. And the Shoot the Sheriff I put back. I'm not sure, I think this was incorrect. I think I should in hindsight have put back the Kaito, because if the opponent has Thoughtseize, it would be better to save the Kaito. So Kaito is really strong in the fair matchups, because normally we just lose to stuff like I don't know, like Reanimated Fatty. Okay, we still have Shoot the Sheriff, but still it puts us so far behind. So Kaito is really a good way, and it cannot be dazed, it cannot be forced. So here we fetch the Underground Sea and we play Kaito, and I think it's best here to draw a card with Kaito because it has 4 loyalty, so we can still stun something. I mean, it will die if we stun 2 things in a row, but normally I think it's better to just draw the card. And its cry is also really, really good. It makes our Nethergoyf bigger, and we see, what do we find? I think we find 2 lands and decide to keep 1 land in case of a wasteland and also against daze, but the Undercity Sewers we don't want. opponent plays a frog and wastes us. Yeah, right. And now we can here play. We stun the frog. Now we only have 2 counters, and then we play the Murktide Regent and also the Nethergolf. And if the Nethergolf gets dazed, it's not as bad probably, because but if it goes through, we have some kind of protection. If the opponent goes for Reanimate on Archon, then we can just use the Nethergolf as sacrifice fodder. So we play out the Murktide first, the Nethergolf gets dazed, and the opponent does have to reanimate. And the problem now is that we are a bit behind. Normally Archon of Cruelty is pretty much GG, but in this case we have to shoot the sheriffs, so we can here use the shoot the sheriff on the Archon of Cruelty, of course, and unfortunately this gets forced. So we do the brainstorm and we hope that we can find a force or a daze, but unfortunately we don't find it. So we put back, I think, the Emperor of Bones and 1 land. So we have another shoot the sheriff next turn and the Emperor of Bones. And if we get discarded, then we can still win. And yeah, we have to sacrifice Kaito, because otherwise opponent has too much life, and opponent uses a Sword Seize. I'm not sure if this is correct, because they go down to 3 and we can use the Emperor of Bones here. Daze would be a problem. If the opponent would daze us here, we would be pretty much dead, but opponent doesn't have daze or force. So what we can do is we look at the graveyards, and there is a Murktide Regent, so we can reanimate the Murktide Regent and do exactly, reanimate it with the Emperor of Bones and attack for exactly 3 damage and have a really nice win here against Archon and Frog. And let's go to game number 3. So our hand has really good spells. We have the Dark Betrayal against the creatures and the Nihil Spellbomb against reanimation, and we have the force to force it through. So it's still a bit of a greedy keep, because we have only a swamp and we have no blue producing land to fire off the brainstorm, but I still decide to keep it here, because in emergency we can use the Nihil Spellbomb. So I'm interested what you say. Maybe you would have not kept it, but I thought we have a few looks at the land, and yeah, they don't have so many ways to win, right? Like they have a few creatures and they have reanimation, and we have it covered. So, and because we don't have the second land here, I decide to lead with the Nihil Spellbomb and to force it through. So opponent here floats blue mana. Swamp cycles, this is something that I don't... right, because we cannot daze back, because we let on the basic swamp. But I'm still not quite sure on the timing with the cycling, because opponent maybe could have faked that they have a brainstorm available or something. So we force pitching the Murktide, because it's a long way off to cast this. We need double blue, and opponent forces again, and we force back because, right, we cannot use the cards in our hands anyway. So now we are a card down. But it's still okay, because I think we have the Dark Betrayal and the Shoot the Sheriff, so we have pretty much most things they can do covered. So we have a Brainstorm, opponent plays Brainstorm, and while we are really low on lands, the opponent has a lot of lands here. And we can always use the Spellbomb. Oh, sorry, I Dark Betrayal the Psychic Frog, and I'm really lucky that the opponent doesn't have anything like a Daze or a Force, and now we have another Murktide Regent. And another reason to be aggressive with the Forces is that then we don't have to discard. So you see here, I'm stuck on a low amount of lands for a long time. And so I don't have to discard for a while because of the forces. And now we have a surgical, so we could use the surgical right now for the reanimate, but I think I forgot to show this in the second game. There was one point where I surgicaled something. And I got to take a look at the deck list, and I thought their game 2 and game 3 configurations are probably pretty similar, and there are only 2 reanimates, 2 entombs in the deck after that, and 3 metamorphosis fanatics. So that's why I think it's not worth it to surgical the reanimate here, but it's better to keep it in case they will play a metamorphosis fanatic. So that's why I discard here another Murktide Regent. Or, I mean, I exiled the first, so we don't have any more Murktides available. Opponent has a lot of lands. And we have to discard something. I discard the second Brainstorm. And opponent is now in hardcast territory for Metamorphosis Fanatic, but at least we have the days, and opponent has the push for our frog. We could have also played the Brainstorm, but again, I think the opponent only had 2 fatal push, so that's why I risked it here. I think against something like UB Tempo, maybe I would have played the Brainstorm instead, because they have so much removal, but in this case I also felt so far behind, I thought it was better to play the frog and hope it comes through. Opponent reanimates the troll, the frog, I don't want to surgical it, and I push it instead and have the days for the hardcast force. And I have a Mishra's Bauble, okay. I kept the Bauble in because they normally don't play the Bowmaster in Reanimator anymore. And we play Frog, and opponent has push, and we force the push. Opponent has Dismember, and yeah, now opponent has no cards in hand, and we can get our Scryland. And what do we see? We see a Wasteland. I mean, they have 7 mana, so they can still hardcast Metamorphosis Fanatic. And if they draw one, they can miracle it anyways. So we put the Wasteland into the graveyard. Then we ponder, and we see Frog, Borer, and Sheoldred's Edict. So I think I decide to stack it Edict on top, then Borer, and then Frog. And we play Frog. I could have decided to play around days, but in this case I thought the chance is rather low. And they play, because they didn't decide to daze when I dazed their hardcast force. I think it was days on their force. So they play Barrowgolf, and we can shoot the Sheriff on Barrowgolf and attack with the frog. And we could also use Brazen Borer to bounce it, but I decide to do that instead. And now we can use Sheoldred's Edict on the frog and attack again, and we play the Emperor of Bones. Again, not playing around days. Opponent sword seizes us. I decide to not surgical in response, and we can use the Emperor of Bones to adapt the Barrowgolf and have the opponent dead on board. And that's it for the match. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed it, and next time I will try to find some Nadu replay, because one of the viewers requested that. But I think this was a really cool match against Reanimator, which is also the most played deck right now. So please tell me what you think. Maybe I did some mistakes, and see you next time.